Chief Imo himself, Uche Odopota, MCA1, MC BZB, Sister Maggie, MC OJB, MC Splendor, MC CEO, MC Triple U, Don Nice, Emeka Smith, and Appos. DJ Osajat and DJ T God will be there live. Dancers, Dazzlers, 21st October 2022, 5 p.m. Venue, Asian Community Center, White Hart Road, Thamesmead, London. Postcode SE18 1DG. Ticket, standard £35, VIP £700. To get your ticket online, visit www.eventbrite.co.uk or www.cocobar.com. Ticket outlet, Alpha Lounge Lewisham, Enish Old Kent Road, Wazobia Old Kent Road, Empire Lounge Old Kent Road, Okuro Hastor Woolwich, Lewisham High Street and Eventbrite. For more info, call the numbers on your screen. This is going to be great. Don't miss out.
Welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ogbunwezeh. As usual, this is my Friday Hangout. You know the rule of the game in my Friday Hangout. Today, the 14th of October 2022. Go grab yourself something to drink. You can see here, I'm doing myself a favor with my Zobo drink. This evening, I'm going to have a very interesting guest. As many of you know, I did inform us over my program last week that this is going to happen. He's one of those guests that you need to go far and wide, even beyond, to go look for. A man with so much busy schedule, it was very uneasy to track him down. But today in the studio, I do have the rare privilege to have my brother and my friend, I will call him, in my Friday Hangout today, Dr. Ogbunwezeh Franklyne. Doctor, you are welcome to Njenje Media TV.
Thank you very much, Mazi is okay, and then good evening, viewers.
So everyone, thank you very much once more, my brother, for joining me. Now, for those of you who do not know, by way of introduction, who my guest is. My guest is a senior research fellow and the director for Genocide Prevention in Africa at the Christian Solidarity International CSI, Zürich, Switzerland. Now, let us move back and just speak the language of the Dutch a little bit. Na, wie geht's dir heute?
Wow, super geht's mir. Vielen Dank. Es ist schon lange her, dass du uns verlassen hast. So.
Es ist ein bisschen her, aber immerhin sind wir alle noch gesund, ne?
Das ist der wichtigste Punkt. Ja, Gesundheit und alles andere kann man immerhin davon wegschauen. So, wir sind hier.
Alles klar. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I do not only speak English, you know, Igbo. I do have one or two languages under my belt. But again, I want you to know that on my Friday Hangout, it is a relaxed environment and a relaxed conversation. I do hope you have water or whatever to drink. If I were to be in Germany now, I will be having this show with Weiss beer. You know, that's my favorite. In the absence of palm wine. Okay, so let's quickly start. And obviously, you have been a senior research fellow and the director for genocide prevention at the Christian Solidarity International. In line with your work, looking at Nigeria today, do you think there is any cause for Nigeria to worry?
Well, thank you, my brother. It's a very relaxed conversation, but I will start really quick by letting our audience know that my organization, the Christian Solidarity International, in the year 2020, gave out a genocide warning for Nigeria, which is to say that there are indications that a genocide by installment is ongoing in Middle Belt, Nigeria. Local villagers and local farmers and Christians are being daily and routinely murdered by a band of Fulani militants. and the government, the federal government, actively does nothing. So, and it was so rampant and so pervasive that we were forced by the numbers that we were seeing coming out of Nigeria to issue that proclamation to the whole world. One could see that on our website, nigerianreport.org. We made that explicitly clear. A genocide is afoot in Nigeria, and the Nigerian government is doing nothing in this regard. And that was why the United States government in 2020 inserted Nigeria into a list called the CPC list. This is the countries of particular concern. This is a list of countries that tolerate or do nothing when people are persecuted for their religious affiliations and faith. So yes, there are causes to be that makes one afraid. I was in Nigeria in 2021. I traveled the length and breadth of the country to understand the implications of what is going on. And in Nigeria, I had a few interviews with many radio and television stations. And what I saw on the ground is simply evidence to the fact that if we don't do anything, if we continue on the path that we were at that time, that Rwanda was going to be a child's play to what is going to happen in Nigeria if we don't take time. Even at this moment, a lot of Nigerians are in refugee camps. In the Middle Belt, Governor Tom will tell you, he has about 1.5 million people in refugee camps. And the federal government is not even talking to him in relation to this. We are not talking about what Boko Haram is doing in northeast Nigeria, where the territory has been colonized by the insurgents that have been fighting the Nigerian government, trying to establish an Islamic caliphate. We are not even talking about the agitations we are seeing in the southeast or the agitations we are seeing in the southwest as well, with Sunday Igboho and then Nnamdi Kanu that we heard the appeal court released yesterday. So all this shows, one, that Nigeria is a boiling cauldron that is going to explode at any moment. And unfortunately, the Nigerian government, the outgoing government, dropped the ball. The government was playing and on its charge, not taking charge of the security situation. That's the major reason why today the insecurity in Nigeria is so pervasive that Nigerians are even afraid in their homes. Nigerians are even afraid to travel by road. They are even afraid to travel by train and even by air. There are problems everywhere. Bandits are going to kidnap you if you travel by road. Bandits even hijack trains, moving trains in Nigeria. Okay. And then kidnapping and abductions have become big business in Nigeria. These guys are reeling in dollars, millions of it. We heard by the last count that the Nigerian government paid close to 6 billion naira to release those abducted from the Kaduna-Abuja train heist that was perpetrated by the bandits. And we have come to see that many people who claim to be go-betweens between the kidnappers and the government are actually in cahoots with these kidnappers. So it seems to be a big business that has a lot of principals who are profiting from it. And this is what we are seeing in Nigeria. The insecurity is so much, the agitations are so much, and the terrorism against minorities, against people of other religious groupings and all whatnot is pervasive in Nigeria at the moment. So the insecurity is a situation, Thomas Hobbes, anybody that has read the philosophies of the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, he was describing the Nigeria of today. The life of the ordinary Nigerian is at this moment nasty, brutish, and short. So, and that should not be in a country that is richly blessed and endowed like Nigeria is.
But if I, while you're talking, you in my notes here, you made mention of genocide by installment.
Yes.
Now, when you review genocide by installment, do you, in your considered opinion, think that there is a systematic approach to that genocide, quote unquote, loosely used here? Or do you think that genocide is as a result of the inability of the Nigerian state to wake up to its core responsibility, which is the protection of life and properties?
Both. The Nigerian government seems to be in tacit agreement with what the Fulani militants are doing. In southern Kaduna alone today, over 106 communities have been invaded and taken over by Fulani militants and prevented the natives, the locals, the owners of those places from going back there. And anybody who speaks out against that is arrested by the Kaduna state governor. Luka Biniyat, a local journalist who has reported severally on this genocide happening to his own people, was clamped in jail and is being terrorized by the Kaduna state government at this point. Stephen Kafers, a young southern Kaduna journalist, has to flee Nigeria for his life. He has been reporting on this genocide, that how can a government whose primary statutory responsibility is the protection of life and property of her citizens abandon that, while Fulani militants are causing havoc throughout the length and breadth of Kaduna state, sacking Christian villages? How can that be? How can a government, justify that? The federal government is not even helping matters here. In Jos Plateau, in the Plateau state of Nigeria, almost every other day, these Fulani militants raid communities. How could the Fulani militants raid communities only in central Nigeria if there is no system behind it? From Jos to southern Kaduna and to the Benue Basin, so people are being slaughtered in their beds every other night. Christian women, Christian children, Christian men. They are natives, the Birom in Bakos local government area of Plateau State. Just 2 days ago, the Fulani militants invaded a village and killed at least 2 people. So that's why I call it genocide by installment. They killed 2 people here today and sack the village and burn it down. And tomorrow they will be grazing their cattle there. And then the next day they'll move on to the other one. And the people in that village will have to run for their lives because they don't know whether they will be attacked again. So that village is abandoned. And so when you destroy the ability of a community to reproduce and replenish itself, it's genocide. And this is what is happening across central Nigeria, throughout the middle belt, and it's moving south gradually. So the only thing that is between southern Nigeria and these kinds of attacks is still Benue, the middle belt. So that's where they are. That's where it's happening at the moment. And this is why, and you don't see this on the main medias of the world. You don't even see the Nigerian media is even tired of reporting on these issues, but we get the numbers every day. And we hear the cries of these people every other day. And the Nigerian government does absolutely nothing to the cries emanating from this region.
I need to piggyback here.
Okay.
If we go by the definition of genocide, which is, obviously a word coined after Raphael Lemkin, that is around 1944, after the Jewish genocide, basically.
The Holocaust.
Now he says the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that particular nation or group. Now, the question is, the areas you mentioned now is, because I'm kind of coming back to that question again, think that there is, because the key word here is deliberate.
Yeah.
That there is an orchestrated plan to eliminate, kill, destroy in whole or in part of a certain people, a certain culture, a certain, in our case, a certain tribe by another. Not a criminal gang, but by another. So can we because it appears in Nigeria.
Yes, of course. Yes, there is a deliberate, from all indications on the ground, there is a deliberate attempt to wipe out the inhabitants, the natives of the Middle Belt, because of their land, and turn it into whatever, a grazing reserve or whatever they want. And this battle did not start today. If you speak to the natives, this is what they face on a daily basis. So you cannot explain to them why they will be attacked in their homes while they are asleep. because a group of people want to graze their cattle on their land. Okay. And then you will hear people telling you about the fact that because the jihad of 1804 was frustrated in the Middle Belt, that this group of people have sworn that they are going to continue that jihad by eliminating everybody in that Middle Belt. So you can hear those theories as well. But there is, at this point, it's orchestrated because these attacks keep happening over and over again. And some informants that we have among the Fulanis themselves will warn you ahead of time that these attacks are coming. And the intentions are very clear: to usurp the land of these people and own it. There are some villages that have been renamed into Fulani in the Middle Belt of Nigeria today. They have attacked and then taken up these villages for themselves. And the owners of the villages can no longer go back to their homes. So this deliberate attempt to destroy a people, their culture, and even their future, these are clear indications of genocide. There is no other way. There is no way to paint it. And the Nigerian government will be saying it's a criminal gang just to escape responsibility for its inability to stem these tides. And that's also very shameful because that doesn't even help the victims of this. Nobody till date has been arrested or prosecuted successfully over these cases in the Middle Belt of Nigeria. No one. So, and the government doesn't even, and even the military was even accused of using a helicopter gunboat to help kidnappers, to help the Fulani militants. So, and the government has not even deemed it fit to explain to its people why this should be the case. And we have so many instances where military commanders, where these militants will attack a village with a military post just 2 kilometers away, and they wouldn't come to help until everything is over. These cases, repeat themselves, and then the villagers will now be linking, oh, because this man is a Fulani, the commander is a Fulani, and then they'll wait until everything happens, and then before they come to scream, oh, we couldn't do anything. So it doesn't bring any hope or succor to the victims.
So
the
in
victims
that case, in that case, do you then consider that the Nigerian president is, in this case, culpable?
The buck stops at his desk. That's all I can say to that.
So that makes him culpable.
The buck stops at his desk. If he cannot, he has shown an inability to stop this pervasive insecurity, especially this genocide by installment going on in the Middle Belt. That means either he is incompetent or he doesn't want to do anything. Either way, the buck stops at his desk. Yeah, or both. So, he can then explain to us which one it is. Because I cannot imagine in my wildest dreams that a president will sit down in a country like Nigeria and such a thing is happening day in, day out. And, he seems to be in cahoots with these people. And we can rightly even accuse him of that because being a Fulani, he is running a nepotistic government. All the strategic military positions in Nigeria are held by northern Muslims. And these Fulanis that are attacking people in Nigeria are Muslims as well. So you cannot tell an intelligent man not to put 2 and 2 together to make that accusation. If you don't want to make that accusation, you have to give him reasons not to. But at this time, we have not had reasons not to say that this man is playing a nepotistic game. He owes allegiance seemingly to his core constituency, which is his tribe, than to Nigeria. Because if every other Nigerian, the president, how many times has he visited these crime scenes to commiserate with the people, to tell them, we hear your cries, we will do something about it? How many times? So these are cases that Nigerians look at and say, we don't know exactly what is happening here. Our president doesn't even care about us. The Russian president, there was a time there was an attack in his country. He was on a visit. He had to cut it short. Any other foreign leader, any other sensible leader or civilized leader will cut short everything he's doing and pay a visit to these regions and hear the cries of the people firsthand. Listen to them. But the Nigerian president is missing in action. He has gone AWOL on his people, on his core constituency, the people that elected him.
Probably what confuses Nigerian is the fact that we hear that these people are non-Nigerians, that they come from outside Nigeria, then it begs the question, why on earth would anyone want other foreigners to invade a space controlled by an elected president, a man who who is an ex-military man
Mhm.
and a commander in chief, and he stays there, and there are no much consequences. No, jokingly, we used to say there was a time the former Inspector General of Police, he said he sent him to Benue
Mhm.
when there was over 250 killing in one day, and the
Mhm.
man went to Nasarawa.
Yeah.
And the other time he looked at he came back from a trip and he was asked, well, what is the new strategy in tackling the in tackling the crime? He said, well, he has just seen the new IG that he's losing weight, meaning that he is working very hard. So, if you put all these things together, do you really see him as someone who is serious in fighting any of these if there is no culpability here?
Well, I don't see any atom of seriousness on the part of the Nigerian government to end this spate of killings in the Middle Belt and much of Nigeria. I don't see anyway. The government is now a lame duck, is out of the way. In February 2023, Nigeria, if all things being equal, will have a new president. At this point, is a failure of governance at all levels. I don't see President Muhammadu Buhari being able to do anything in this. It's a failure of governance. We have to state it the way it is. And his service chiefs, if I am a president and my service chiefs or my intelligence chiefs are telling me that people committing crimes in my country are foreigners and they are not in the position to stop that, I will sack all of them at that point immediately. I will not even waste a second to dismiss all of them and appoint new people, which is to say, where these guys come from. So if you have that knowledge, what did you do with that knowledge? What have you done to stop it? I don't need excuses, ifs or buts. I need action. I need that to stop. What have you guys done? Is it lack of capacity? Is it lack of political will? Is it a leadership failure? I will take an audit of myself because I'm not even safe anymore. If I'm a president and I'm surrounded by people who are feeding me this kind of information, I, as a president, will not even feel safe on my seat, which is to say that foreigners may come in and kidnap me from Asarok in the night, and I wouldn't even say it's coming. So if they know where these people come from, if they know they are foreigners, what have you done?
Now, and that's exactly at that point, if you hinge it at that point, you then ask this question: if there were to be deliberate attempt in the middle belt,
Mhm.
how come that same level of criminality, let me use that word,
Okay.
happens in his own state, a people, a
Mhm.
tribe,
Mhm.
a basically doing the same thing, the same manner of criminality have that we have seen in the middle belt also happening in
In
his own
Tanzania.
place.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so now exactly, so it now leads me to the question: if there was an orchestrated plan by the definition of genocide happening in the middle belt, then it then confuses the audience as to why that same level of crime and criminality is also happening in the state of the president.
okay. Well, let me clarify that a little bit because there is a distinction here. The distinction is what we are seeing in the Middle Belt is quite different from the banditry that we are seeing in the Northwest. Okay, the bandits are a different ball game altogether. So the bandits maybe have declared a war against the government on so many levels, and that's why they are kidnapping people and making money of it. Somebody told me, somebody who should be in the know, told me while I was visiting Nigeria, a very top Nigerian politician told me in confidence that there was an agreement in 2015, what they call the Fulani Kanuri Alliance, to get people from outside Nigeria into the country in the case that the Goodluck Jonathan refuses to hand over power so that they will make the country ungovernable. And these people were made promises. And the promises, when they got to power, they reneged on these promises. And now these were the guys that metamorphosed into bandits and now terrorizing the bejesus out of this government. And they are using the president's home state as a staging ground, and then sometimes in Kaduna, because the man told me that even the governor of Kaduna State is in on this. And then he reminded me that the governor of Kaduna State took billions of naira to go and pay the bandits to stop terrorizing his state. So he knew where to find them and pay them this money. So what does that tell us? Nigerians stopped asking questions, that a governor could just get up. Where did he source the money from? These are taxpayers' money.
Well,
and then he took,
in fairness,
right.
sorry, in fairness to him, when he made that statement, I think that we had this video then. I think that was an he made that clarification on morning Sunrise TV on Channels TV in the morning, where he actually said that the reason why that was done, that there has been some historical war between the two entities. Let me not say tribe here. Now, and based on this, that some said that their cows or whatever were killed, and they needed to pay restitution, and instead of that continuing, he had to make that payment in order to buy peace.
Okay.
Though many people didn't believe that.
Yeah, well, many people don't, even in Southern Kaduna, don't believe that. People will tell you that that's not the case. And then the governor should have done more, because what I can say is that you never buy peace with money. You buy peace with placing policies in place that will ensure that the people who may be tempted to terrorize your people will know that they will be met with equal and commensurate opposition. And then you can dialogue. So our government didn't do that. Our government was simply transferring wealth from our coffers to the kidnappers' coffers, and then they are buying more sophisticated weapons. If you listen to the BBC expose on the bandits in Zamfara State, one was asked, "What do you do with all the money that you make?" When he said, "We'll buy more weapons, and then we'll go back to terrorizing." This me talking now. They will go back to terrorizing the people. So what do you buy weapons for? Weapons are not beer that you drink at leisure. Those are things you use. These are instruments of violence. And then, so once you buy them, you have to use them. And that's what is happening. So this is where we are as a people. So like I said, what I see here is a multi-level failure of governance. That's, from the federal to the state level. And this is why you could hear the clamor where people are saying we want state policing. In spite of all the contras and pros to state policing, people are still clamoring for it, because the central government has shown an unwillingness or an incompetence in handling in real time, handling this issue of massive insecurity and even the genocide by installment that is going on in the Middle Belt as I am talking.
Sorry about that. There was a slight breaking transmission there with the internet. But anyway, that is on that level of crime, or rather, in line with your work, that your organization have pre-warned Nigerians regarding what is, in their considered opinion, likely to happen in Nigeria. But now, as it is today, being October 2022, do you think that report that was issued in 2020, as you said at the beginning, is still something that the state should be worried about now?
Of course, yes. Of course, Nigeria. Let me tell you, my brother, it is even getting worse by the day. It's getting worse. What we don't see is that it's no longer being reported. There seems to be this media fatigue, because there is a new sheriff in town. The elections are coming, and once it's election season in Nigeria, a lot of things get swept under the carpet. Boko Haram has not even stopped its operations in the Northeast. Neither has Islamic State for West Africa, or even Ansaru, or the killings has not even stopped in Southern Kaduna or in the Jos Plateau or even in Benue State. The governor Tom will tell you this himself. So, but since we're in an election cycle, people are now very much focused. Even all our media attention is on the elections and on the candidates and what they have to do for the country. But that doesn't mean that we really need to be worried about the security situation. You can equally hear candidates like Peter Obi talking about his major priority if he gets to power being to secure Nigeria, because he has seen, if he is getting intelligence reports, he will see what is happening. To secure Nigeria, the insecurity has paralyzed life and economic activities across the Middle Belt and Northwest Nigeria. What is happening even in the Northeast? What is the economic life like? Nigeria, when he is talking about moving Nigeria from consumption to production, we are not producing anything anywhere. Even the people are no longer going to their farms in the Middle Belt, which is the food basket of the nation, to say the least. They're no longer going to their farms for fear of being attacked and killed by these Fulani fundamentalists. So these are things, these are areas we know what is happening, and they know that as well. So insecurity. That's the primary thing any new president from 2023 is going to face squarely if Nigeria is to survive. If not, we can bid farewell to that country we call Nigeria if nothing is done to stop the violence.
Thank you very much for that. Now, if we move away from that, level of insecurity, or as some of us would actually say, genocide, or rather, if I may borrow your own lexicon, genocide by installment. If we then we can then probably go back and look at the issue with Boko Haram. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm listening to you.
Are you there?
I didn't get the last question. Okay, Boko Haram. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we look at Boko Haram, for instance, there is this report that I think partly you alluded to it, that the government paid billions to the Boko Harams, and over 100 of their men were released. Meanwhile, a couple of weeks or months ago, we saw the prison break in Kuje.
Kuje
that
prison.
many still believe that was nothing more than a prison swap. Because the operation where you had intelligence that this was going to happen, you allowed it happen, and up till now, not a single person that we are aware has been held accountable, responsible, and dealt with. Putting all this together, what's your take on the relationship between the bandits, the government, and Boko Haram?
My brother, if you were observant, you could hear Goodluck Jonathan say in 2015 that members of Boko Haram are in his government. He never minced words. He believed, the president then believed, that there are some top officials of his government that are colluding with these terrorists. Okay, and then what has transpired since Buhari came to power seems to give Goodluck Jonathan, give basis to his accusations. Come to think of it, Kuje prison is not even 25 kilometers from Aso Rock, and Abuja is the seat of power in Nigeria. And in Abuja, we have all the military establishments represented. We have military barracks. We have Air Force, and so Abuja is the most secure, or should be the most secure place in Nigeria where the president lives. And the prison break from a terror group that our president told us has been technically defeated happened under the nose of the Inspector General of Police, under the nose of the Chief of Army and Chief of General Staff, under the nose of the DSS commander, under the nose of all the security architecture that Nigeria has. And no one, The military did not even respond until the heist was done. They broke down a medium security prison in Kuje and carted away. They operated for hours on end.
And over 600 inmates were released.
So this is what, because it never took 30 minutes for Sani Abacha to react when Babangida was under attack at Dodden Barracks. It didn't even take Sani Abacha 2 minutes to rally the troops and dislodge the Oka coup in 1990. And then we are sitting here, a former military general that is our president. None of the service chiefs, they may be sleeping on duty, I don't know. But nobody reacted until these guys played their game for hours, broke down the prison walls, released over 600 prisoners, and went away, just walked away out of our federal capital. And our president is still sitting comfortably in his seat, and he's not afraid. And then no service chief has been sacked. The Inspector General of Police is still at his post. The DSS guy is still there. The military intelligence, the prison warden, everybody is still on it. So Nigerians, Nigerians will tell you, you think we are fools. You have not told us what is happening.
Yeah, but if you look at it this way as well, his own advance convoy has been attacked twice. So it gets some people really confused as to why he not doing the march or really using the big hammer that ought to have been used many times before.
And this is this is what brings a lot of people to either say that we have a president who is no more there mentally, or he is in on the game being played. Because they have never attacked his convoy directly. They only attack his advanced team. Okay. And if a president could tolerate this security lapses on the, very close to his kitchen, and there's no consequence for anybody, it says only two things. Either he knows what is happening and is a part of it, and that's why he can't do anything, or the president is mentally incapable of sitting on that seat. These are the two options available. So this is what leads many Nigerians. The rumor on the street is that the government and Boko Haram are working together. That's the rumor on the street. If the government has not heard this, I'm telling you now directly, a Nigerian government, the Nigerians on the streets believe that you guys are Boko Haram, because you guys have not been able to explain to us why and how a prison break could take place in Abuja, the seat of power in Nigeria, housing all military and security systems and institutions that we have in the country, and nobody has taken the fall for it. Nobody has fallen on his sword, and the president is still on seat. And then we are being played for kids. So the rumor on the street, Nigerians believe that you guys is just all staged to make us believe that something is happening while nothing is happening. Somebody called it said, even a few weeks ago, over 103 Boko Haram fighters that were arrested and kept in Kirikiri were released. And then somebody in the human rights community wrote me and told me before that somebody called him from Kirikiri prisons to say that these people are now being processed out. And that's a quid pro quo for releasing the final batch of the abductees from the Kaduna Abuja rail line. Since I couldn't verify that information independently, I couldn't do anything with it. But they have been released, actually, because in the news a few days later.
It's been in the news.
Yeah, a few days later, it's appeared in the news. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So why would the government release Boko Haram fighters that have not been tried? But they tried Nnamdi Kanu and his group, but you didn't try any Boko Haram guy. The only guy that was ever tried was Kabiru Sokoto, who was responsible for bombing the Catholic Church in Madala, Niger State in 2013. That has been, but every Boko Haram fighter that has been captured it seems to have been released. So Nigerians are asking, Mr. President, what is happening? We need answers from you.
That is indeed, eye-opening. But anyway, if we move to the oil sector, maybe before we do, let's go for a break. And when we come back from our break, we will start and look at the level of oil theft happening in Nigeria and why the man in charge of that sector appears also incapable to do anything.
Star Hot
Stay tuned.
Promotions and Nolly Peak Entertainment presents Chief Imo in London, featuring Chief Imo himself, Uche Odopota, MCA1, MC BZB, Sister Maggie, MC OJB, MC Splendor, MC CEO, MC Triple U, Don Nice, Emeka Smith, and Appos. DJ Osajat and DJ T God will be there live. Dancers, Dazzlers, 21st October 2022, 5 p.m. Venue, Asian Community Center, White Hart Road, Thamesmead, London. Postcode SE18 1DG. Ticket standard £35, VIP £700. To get your ticket online, visit www.eventbrite.co.uk or www.cocobar.com. Ticket outlet: Alpha Lounge Lewisham, Enish Old Kent Road, Wazobia Old Kent Road, Empire Lounge Old Kent Road, Okuroha Store Woolwich, Lewisham High Street and Eventbrite. For more info, call the numbers on your screen. This is going to be great. Don't miss out.
So, welcome back once more. It's been my Friday hangout with Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh, a senior research fellow and the director for genocide prevention in Africa at the Christian Solidarity International, CSI, Zürich, Switzerland. Welcome back again. Now, before we went on break, we talked about genocide. We looked at Boko Haram, and obviously the argument you presented that there was a genocide by installment happening in the middle belt of Nigeria, and also that there is a systematic approach towards the madness, because again, it can be best described as madness, what is happening in some places. Now, here in the last couple of days or weeks now, Nigerians have woken up with series of videos showing how their natural resources is being, stolen with reckless abandon. Nigerians have seen, how those meant to protect the oil facilities are virtually part of those now stealing the oil. And all this, there is one thing that stands out. The man that says he is fighting corruption, incidentally, is the man in charge of that sector. What do you have to say?
Well, okay. The NNPC, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, is a beehive of corruption, like every Nigerian knows. There is no two ways to that. Tony Uranta told the Americans, according to a WikiLeaks cable that was leaked in 2008 or thereabout, that one of the greatest oil, this issue of oil bunkering has been bogging down the system all this while. It's not that the government doesn't know who are involved. So Tony Uranta then, according to this document that I saw, told the Americans that the greatest oil bunkerer then was Shehu Musa Yaradua, and that he left it in the charge of his brothers, and then that one of the Nigerian presidential candidates is equally in on it. The presidential candidate in this cycle was controlling that for him. So you will remember, if you have been observant, if you've been following the Nigerian media, that in 2017, that the junior minister of state for petroleum, Mr. Ibe Kajibu, accused President Buhari and Maikantu Baru, the former NNPC chairman, of stealing close to $26 billion. And then what happened? This is a junior minister. And Ibe Kachikwu, incidentally, is from the Niger Delta. And what happened? He went to visit there was a meeting in the State House, and he came out and said, and then he tried to recant, though unsuccessful. And a few weeks later, they tried to say that it was the Vice President Osibanjo who approved contracts worth 600 and something million. But they never addressed the core accusation by a minister in your government telling the world that my principal is a thief. Nobody addressed that. My Canterbury, I understand, is dead now. But almost every other person who has been associated with our oil ministry and parastatal. There was a time that the Nigerian minister was caught with over $200,000. He was scammed of over $200,000 in a hotel room in Vienna, attending the OPEC conference. A prostitute stole the money from him, and these are public information. Okay, so the NNPC, the Nigerian oil sector, has been a beehive of corruption since inception. Even the Americans have been warning Nigeria about this oil theft. Ships will come. These are huge oil tankers. They will come into our territorial waters. They will load oil without, they are not even hiding it. And then they will move away. And I was made to understand that each of the big tankers could hold up to $300 million worth of crude in one trip. And then this is what Nigeria is losing. And we have a president that sits there and does nothing. I never expected anything to happen since Mike Canterbury and the president were accused of cornering $26 billion belonging to the NNPC. So what else am I to expect that oil bunkering is happening? Nigeria has not met up its OPEC quota since every other country has been having windfalls based on the Russian-Ukraine war. Only Nigeria. Okay, and our oil is being stolen on a massive scale by people in power. It's not ordinary. Peter Obi said it. I am sorry. It's not people in now. It's not ordinary. Oil is not something you can steal in a backpack. It's something, and no ship gets into a territorial water of any country without the Navy knowing about it. So if our Navy feigns ignorance of that, then we are in danger, which is to say they don't know anything happening in Nigeria, which is to say any country can invade Nigeria and the Navy will be asleep. And this is a cause for fear. If I am a leader, if I'm Nigeria's president, I will be so much afraid that I will sack the Navy commander, the Navy chief immediately on the spot. If I am not in on what is happening, he will be sacked immediately, which is to say he has slept on duty. How can we tolerate such mediocrity? How can we tolerate such incompetence? This is grotesque incompetence. Anyway, it is not a system. The system did not fail. The system was designed that way to shield oil thieves in high places. So Buhari should search his kitchen cabinet and tell us those who have been stealing Nigerian oil. The buck stops at his desk. He knows what is happening. So because if he doesn't know and nobody has taken the fall for it at this time, then it's siesta time for sanity in Nigeria. Nigeria is where the impossible is possible every other day.
Looking at the screen,
mm-hmm.
Obviously here is the oil pipeline, and you can see multiple outlets there
mm-hmm.
welded into the main oil pipeline, siphoning oil. And this has been happening, according to the report, for the past 9 years. And Buhari
so they knew that. So they knew it's been there for 9 years.
Yes.
And for 9 years, they did nothing.
Yes. And Buhari has been the Minister of Petroleum for the past 9 years.
Yeah, for 9, yeah.
Well, seven and a half years.
Yes.
Getting to 8 years. And it begs the question,
mm-hmm. How
come that something like this has happened? The president is now aware. Let's assume he wasn't aware before. And there is, or rather it appears that no one is being punished for this level. It's not only the environmental damage that you can see here, but also that Nigeria does not even know the amount of oil it produces. It means there is no calculation from the point of the oil coming out of the ground, and there is no any way to know how much oil that comes out after it has come out. Isn't that a tragedy, to say the least?
Well, you are being moral about it, but from the practical perspective, we are in danger in that country. We are in danger due to the fact that What does the president know? He has no idea. Okay, the president doesn't know that Boko Haram attacked Kuje prisons. It was El Rufai that said that he told him or informed him of one of those issues. The president doesn't know what is happening in the oil sector, although he's the minister of petroleum as well as the commander-in-chief. What does our president know? It means he knows nothing. And if he knows nothing, then we are in danger. The man we elected to protect our lives, happening to our lives or our property, but he's answering our president, enjoying all the perks of office, sitting down there and traveling, at our expense, but he's not doing the job for which he was elected. And then we are keeping quiet. I don't believe anyone who tells me that they don't know what is happening. They do know. That they don't know the amount of oil we're producing. They do know. They designed it that way so that they could be stealing these resources to fund their private enterprises. So this is deliberate. It's not an accident. All those pipes you are seeing can never happen without an official knowing about it, without somebody knowing about it. So there's the president asking the questions, who knows what and when? And then the people that know something and did nothing, what is the consequence for that? We have not seen that coming from the presidency or from any Nigerian official. So, which is to say, they are comfortable with things being the way it is. And if it is that way, what is the state our justice but a band of robbers, said St. Augustine. This was a great African theologian of the 1st or 2nd century. So, and that describes Nigeria. Nigeria is a state without justice. We are being governed by a band of robbers. That's exactly what it is.
But many Nigerians who, especially those who brought in this government, not people like me, I was never involved, but disclaimer there, many people who brought this government to power, don't you think they will be regretting now seeing what happened under Goodluck Jonathan and what is then happening now? It appears that if corruption was wearing short before, today it has probably sewn trouser, jeans, and agbada all joined together.
Well, my reaction to that is very simple. Anybody in a democracy, we have political choices. I don't disagree with people who made their choices for Buhari. In 2015, I fought my bosom friend, the late Professor Pius Adesami. May his soul, beautiful soul, rest in peace, who died in a plane crash in Ethiopia. Pius is my bosom friend, and we fought an intellectual battle over Buhari. And he wrote an article about it, mentioning my name. You can always see it. And then I wrote, J'ai accusé. I said, you're accusing me of being neutral. I am not neutral. I am saying I'm not going to vote for Buhari in 2015 because I knew and I saw firsthand. I was in Nigeria, a young man in 1985. I was not even in high school when Buhari was in power and what he did. People were flogged on the streets. Tunde Thompson and Ndoke Rabo were prosecuted. Journalists for doing their jobs. And Ogedengbe and Bartholomew were executed on a retroactive decree. These guys committed a crime yesterday, and you came today and made a new law criminalizing what they did yesterday, and you tied them to stake and shot these young men to death. I will never forgive that guy for that. Okay, that's the greatest miscarriage of justice ever. And in 2015, I told my brother Pius, I am not going to vote for this guy. First of all, in his first missionary journey as our president, what did he achieve? It was only brute force. He was trying a war against indiscipline. Why? And we were forced in high school to sing about it and dance and march, clean up sanitation exercises. What else? He was not even the brain of that administration. Tunde Idiagbon was. But it was a brutal administration because I am very much against every military incursion in politics. So, and then after his record of executive recklessness, people, intellectuals, sat together and repackaged this guy and tried to sell him to us. Many of us were not convinced. I wasn't convinced. I said I was going to vote for Engineer Onovo. He's a minority candidate. I never cared, but he represented what I saw to be a fresh wind in Nigerian politics. He got my single vote. They sold Buhari to us. It was an accident that was meant to happen. Goodluck Jonathan's administration was not all rosy. He had his own shortcomings. But the man seems to be fighting an uphill task against a cabal that was heavily invested in stealing Nigeria blind. And his failure was his inability to rein these guys in. And that spoke bad of his administration. But they capitalized on it to sell Buhari to us as an austere man who is incorrupt. But they forgot that it takes more than being personally incorruptible to govern a complex setup like Nigeria. Shagari was personally incorruptible, but Shagari ran one of the most corrupt administrations in Nigerian history. If we take a look at the Presidential Task Force on Rice, chaired by Umaru Dikko, whom Buhari had to kidnap from London and create and put in a crate because of that massive corruption, massive heist. Umaru Dikko and the MPN cabal went on a spree, looting Nigeria blind at that time. So much so that Nigeria had to go into austerity. We have to take unsustainable loans from IMF, and then we had to go to structurally adjust our economy. Shagari was personally, he didn't steal any money, but his lieutenants were brigands and they raped Nigeria blind. So in 2015, when they brought that argument that Buhari is incorrupt, I gave them the example of Shehu Shagari and MPN from 1979 to 1983. And we agreed to disagree. And today, they sold Buhari to us. And everything, I am not a guy that rejoices, or I don't have what Germans call Schadenfreude. I don't rejoice when something bad happens, and I don't like saying I told you so. But everything we said was going to happen has happened.
So when you look at, when you now look at, obviously saying that everything that you foretold, has actually happened. Now, the question that many would then ask, come towards 2023, how would they then correct that which has happened? But before we get into the future, which is the 2023, because obviously that is the future, it's not yet happened. I want to take you back a little bit to where we started. Now, obviously you were aware that there was this guy called Shehu Mahdi. A couple of weeks ago, a video trended where he was telling an audience of the Middle Belt not to vote a Southern candidate, especially any candidate from the Southeast, because if there were to be any issue within the Southeast or Southern Nigeria, that the quote unquote, the North, irrespective of their belief, Christian Muslims, will be the first line of attack. And many people responded to him, Prophet Isa El Buba, Aisha Yusufu, myself and many others did respond to him. But since then, we haven't had the opportunity to speak. Then I'm now putting it to you as someone whose main preoccupation is research regarding the pre-warnings of genocide. Is there any link to make of that statement? Some would say incitement that he was offering to the people. Again, you alluded to it at the beginning, the Middle Belt, that you said certain people are trying to displace them of their land, yet it's still the same people that he is telling that the ones that they formed new alliance with in the South, that they should be wary of them. Is there any link in your line of work, researching genocide, and also linking that sort of comment that he made?
I got you. The main thing is that, first of all, I have to condemn everything Shehu Mahdi said. I watched the video and I was shocked to my marrows. I was shocked because if you know anything about the Rwandan genocide and the trial of genocidaires in Arusha, at the Arusha Tribunal in Tanzania, you will come away with the role of that incitement played in the Rwandan genocide. A lot of Catholic priests and bishops were indicted by that tribunal for inciting the Hutu militias into murdering their Tutsi neighbors. And we know the role that Radio Colines played in that genocide. People, one of the ways of, one of the first phases of genocide is, first of all, stereotyping. You stereotype of people, and then you demonize them. And that's what Shehu Mahdi did. Okay, Shehu Mahdi is blowing dog whistles, referring back to the pogrom that happened in Biafra without even knowing it. So his outing on that occasion is so very shameful. But you have to know, who is Shehu Mahdi? What is his claim to fame? His only claim to fame was being a friend to the worst and the most brutal dictator that Nigeria has ever seen, Sani Abacha. That is Shehu Mahdi's antecedent. And then what else do we know Shehu Mahdi for? Shehu Mahdi was the guy who accused the governor of Katsina State of financial malfeasance. And when he was called to come and show proof while this guy should be convicted in a court of law, he became paralyzed. And then he forgot that CCTV was in the room. Once he came into the room, the paralysis miraculously disappeared.
Healed.
And then he was walking freely, like, he was in excellent health. These are his two claims to fame. And this is the man being used by the cabal that has ruined Nigeria, that want to remain in power, into selling these dog whistles. So Shehu Mahdi, I am sorry, such characters are the characters that are being thrown out in every election cycle. But they don't know that what they are selling, that these are merchants of deceit, and they are supporting the stereotyping and scapegoating of a people. You are telling middle belt religious men, Christians, not to vote for a Southern Christian, even if he's a Christian, because they will go for Biafra. As if any of the candidates in this election has even made a point about Biafra. I don't see anybody who has made that point. But for him to import it, and then his principals didn't warn him or didn't ask him to desist, or even did not issue a disclaimer, shows you that he has the tacit support of the guy he's representing.
Actually, he said that Biafra would destroy Nigeria, but that is the connection that I still fail to, make. How would that happen?
No, but that tells you that most of the time, those people who are selling stereotypes are senseless. They don't think logically through anything they are saying. So Shehu Mahdi is just out there to spread rumor. And then, some of the worst genocides happen when officials tell lies about the people, about the group. And this is what Shehu Mahdi is doing. Shehu Mahdi is doubling as a spokesperson of his party. Doubling. I don't know who nominated him to be there, but that's what he's showing us to be. And a lot of people who are not well educated to critically question his assertions will take it at face value and can go abroad hurting their neighbors whom they have lived in peace with for donkey years, based on those words that he vomited out there. So it doesn't make any logical sense. But in this kind of thing, logic flies out of the window. People always go back to their tribal allegiances and then use that as a basis to wreak havoc on their fellow human beings for nothing, only for the elite to remain in power. And the funny thing is that the common people on the street will not even profit from anything when Shehu Mahdi and his cohorts get to power. Okay? They will be dishing out close to nothing to the Almajiris that flock around them. But they wouldn't actually make sure that these people get good education so that they stop begging on the streets. They wouldn't. Because if you dismantle that Almajiri system that people like him have been feeding off, our northern brothers will get excellent education to challenge such illogical assertions made by people and merchants of deceit like Shehu Mahdi. So he's not a man to be, he's to be taken seriously. And then he should know that we are keeping tabs, we are watching and waiting. if people are hurt, that could be traced to his words. He will always say, I just said something. It's a freedom of speech. No, that you have freedom to say whatever you want doesn't empower you to scream fire in a crowded theater. So he should know that. And he knows it. But he chooses to play to the gallery and then to score cheap political points.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, people, if you're just joining us, this is Mazes Oke's Friday Hangout, and I am here with Dr. Franklin Ogbunwezeh from Zurich, Switzerland. Now, let's move to the future. And the future, in this view, is the 2023 presidential election. But before we go proper into the 2023 presidential election, there is this movement that has taken Nigeria by storm. You know, it started like a joke earlier in the year, but suddenly the Nigerian youth on their own, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, began to print, organize, and do everything for themselves, demanding that one man be their president. Now, and when you sit back and think about it, the movement obviously has grown past the man in question, that even Nigerians are demanding that he become their president, that even if he says he's no longer interested in this presidential context, that his safety, that the younger ones would probably inadvertently invade his space. But if we look and really interrogate what has happened in the last couple of months intellectually, what do you think led to such, you know, upsurge of support that has never been witnessed in Nigeria before?
Well, thank you. I actually summarized my views about it in an article I wrote for Premium Times titled P2B, Are We on the Verge of a New Nigeria? It could be seen on at Premium Times. I have never seen such a thing in my life, in my young life as a Nigerian. This is the very first time that I have been, overtaken by a reality that I thought I understood, but saying it, I saw that I never understood what is actually happening. But what I can say to that is that the Nigeria, for instance, 70% of Nigerians are young people under the age of 30 years old. There's a massive demography that, if utilized, this is a resource that is bubbling with life and energy. And this demographics met a world in transition. This world in transition is the world of the social media, the world of the internet, the world where telephones and mobile phones have revolutionized everything. And they are now seeing on their phones how things are done elsewhere. And a lot of these people have actually traveled. And St. Augustine said it, that the world is a book, that those who don't travel have read only but a page. These people have traveled, they have seen life, and they have seen that the way things are happening back home is not the way it should be. And that made some section of these demographics to rise and to stand for their rights and say, we are no more going to take it that the police is being allowed to feast off us, kill us on the streets, take us to the ATM machines and force us to withdraw money for them, and then do all sorts of things with us. And then that's how the NSAS protest started. And the government quashed that with an iron fist and thought it was all over. But these young people have all this while been seeking a way to express themselves. Even the agitations in the southeast and the southwest of Nigeria are being powered by young people. They want a better future. They want a better Nigeria. They want to stop running away from their country. And come P2B, telling them, look at what is happening in your country. Look at the people who are responsible. and look at how it could be salvaged. He analyzed the problem, he pointed where the loopholes are, and he pointed the way forward. Even in all his imperfections, the Nigerian young people, they are intelligent enough to know when someone is being real with them. And I can see that Peter Obi was real with them, and then they became real with him. And that's why they said, Oga, if you say you know they do again, we go drag you. May you continue. This is pidgin for my non-pidgin speaking audience. It means, hey, mister, if you said you're not going to vie for the presidency again, we are going to drag you to continue, because you are not the one running for president. We are running for the president through you. So Peter Obi is simply a symbol of the frustrations of the Nigerian young people. They want the change. They want something new, because this old guard, these old politicians that have been in power since Nigerian independence in 1960 have brought us to ruin. Nigerians, okay, Nigeria is now the poverty capital of the world. In 2014, Nigeria was the largest economy in Africa. Nigeria was jumping and advancing in spite of all the problems, but the economy was fairly healthy. But from 2015 till date, we are now the poverty capital of the world. We are so insecure in our homes, on the streets, everywhere. Nothing is moving in Nigeria. Nigerians don't even have energy anymore to run away from the country. So those who are remaining have said, just like Caesar's army, we are now burning our boats. Nigerians, in Nigerian parlance, they say, we die here. It is this time or never. And that's what I'm seeing in all the young people that I've interviewed in this regard. Nigerians are sick and tired of the old politicians. But what I'm saying also is that the old politicians are not smelling the coffee. They don't know what is happening. At first, they thought this is just a fluke. And then they decided to say, this man doesn't have a structure. And it seems that there is something speaking to whispering into Peter Obi's ears, like the weird sisters of Macbeth, when Peter Obi told them, the 200 million poor Nigerians that you guys are frustrated are my structure. These are the people I'm speaking out for. That seems to have resonated with the people. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates seem to be thrown open. And it's just like a deluge of support. Not only young people anymore, even their mothers and their fathers are now joining, and they call themselves the Obedience. We derive from Peter Obi, the name Obedience. We are now for this guy. This is the guy that we know, and this is the guy we want to be our president come 2023. And the following has been so massive across the length and breadth of Nigeria that what the opposition is doing is just trying to tamp it down, call it an ethnic uprising, call it whatever. But they were shocked by the outpouring of love and support that we saw in Lagos a few weeks ago. We saw that in Akwa Ibom. We saw that all over the country. And these young people, for the first time in Nigerian history, are not paid anything to campaign for anybody. These guys are spending their own money, their meager resources, to print leaflets, shirts, and campaign materials to campaign for a candidate. That has never happened in African history. I've never seen that. But this time, this shows you that something new. There is a new awakening among the Nigerian young people. And I warn these old guard politicians, they may try to steal this election. But if they try that, what happened? They should go and ask Louis XIV what happened to his head in France, in 1789 France. These young people, you cannot, if you frustrate their dreams this time, it's not going to end in a very good way for Nigeria, because the following is massive and they are so frustrated. And this is their only chance to politically and in a civil way express their franchise. So if you're frustrated by trying to steal the election, INEC should better be warned too. If you don't manage this election in a free and fair manner, you are going to cause a cascade of problems that may end up swallowing Nigeria in a deluge of blood. I don't want to see that. I want a free and fair elections. Let the contestants face the voters and let the voters decide whom they want as their leader come 2023. This is a new movement. I have never seen such a thing in my life, that people are not being paid a farthing to campaign for a candidate. It's never happened in my lifetime. What used to happen is that during election time, politicians go around distributing bags of rice and then buying votes even in public. They're not even ashamed of it. They don't even hide it. And Nigerians have a name for it. They call it stomach infrastructure. Okay, so this is what politicians are used to. But this time around, Peter Obi seems to have upped the discussion. Nobody's talking about stomach infrastructure again. We are now talking about facts and statistics, and that's what he spices his deliveries with. And the old guard politicians seems not to be keeping up. They seem not to know how to manage this new force, this new sheriff in town. I wish Nigeria
it appears the P2B effect is hitting all the politicians. Recently, we saw some of them, I think, led by Sowore, now moving around holding their own bags. What is slightly unusual to see the politicians in this part of the world do. And today, we read in the papers the former governor of Abia State, Orji Okalu, saying that the 2023 budget, Nigeria has to move from consumption to production.
Well, for the very first time, we are now discussing issues in Nigerian politics. It used to be. I watched a video of a politician who stood up and said, "If they want dollars, we will outspend them. If they want naira, we will outspend them," and that was his political manifesto. And that used to be the case in Nigeria since 1983 that I started observing Nigerian elections as a young kid. But today we are now discussing issues. Peter Obi has now changed the narrative. It's no longer bullion vans. Bullion vans are not going to cut it this time. What is going to cut it with the voters is you being able to convince them that you are going there to serve them. Well, you are talking about the Peter Obi effect. Chinua Achebe warned in 1983 that the trouble with Nigeria is a failure of leadership. And then he emphasized the fact that the problem is the inability of the Nigerian leadership to rise to the responsibility of personal example. That's what Peter Obi brought into this game with his austere life pattern, and he shuns every amount of ostentation. And we see that. Achebe even warned about it. The Nigerians, our noisy tendency to ostentation. We meet a Nigerian on the streets of London, the way he screams and shouts. And the man comes from the blues. He is quite different from everything we know of a typical Nigerian politician. He doesn't hang around with a retinue of aides and hangers-on. He doesn't waste. He's frugal with public money and public resources, which is unheard of in Nigerian history. We know since 1960, we know about Okotie-Eboh. The British even wrote it down in their memoirs that Okotie-Eboh is flamboyant and vainglorious. And it never even changed till today. So then Peter Obi arrived on the scene with a new outlook, a new way of doing things. And young Nigerians saw that and say, this is our man. This is the guy that will represent us. Peter Obi is a multi-billionaire. Everybody knows that. But you don't see money. You don't see him scream money. He doesn't waste resources. He even said it, and you see it in his actions. He is loath to waste money on excesses. He is a guy that makes sure that money is used for what it's used for. It's as an instrument, and not an instrument to oppress, like Nigerians will say, oppress your neighbors. We don't see Peter Obi flying a private jet, even though he can afford 2, 3, 4 of them. We don't see Peter Obi flying first class to anywhere. This is a guy you meet as a commoner in every economy class plane in Nigeria. But he has the resources to create the kind of life he wants for himself. This is not an advertorial for him, but Nigerians are saying something new. And this has never been the case. And this is why this movement seems to have been infectious across the youth demographics today. And then the old politicians they are lost for words. They don't know how to start managing that. And they think that bringing in what they used to for that tribalism, and then selling the tribal points will make cut at this time. But I don't think that the Nigerian young people are foolish enough to buy that from them this time. They have seen it all this while, and they are not ready again to be taken for granted. So,
on a lighter note, I've been looking.
Go ahead.
On a lighter note, I've been looking for your name since the publication of the campaign council of the Labour Party, and I didn't see you.
Oh, well, I can't be a partisan politician. I have to maintain my neutrality. My
Okay.
heart burns for the country of the hours of my birth, like every other Nigerian. I want Nigeria to succeed. So I wouldn't be
But
joining anybody's campaign council, but I will be
okay,
contributing my
but
quota with the intellectual outputs that we are able to place out there for public consumption.
but there has been a public outcry since the campaign council list was released, and true to what the Labour Party and what Peter B stood for, they've made public statement within 24 hours to say that they will review that and something has to be done. A couple of hours before the start of this interview, I also saw a tweet on his official Twitter handle saying that they will
Something has
review
been done.
that.
I
And
read it as well.
so
I read it as
exactly. So looking at that, is it indeed a taste of what is about to happen where public outcry is listened to with immediate alacrity?
my brother, like I tell you, I was taken by surprise by the force of Peter Obi's personality and his understanding of the issues and his understanding of governance. If this becomes the way he is going, or he will go about his role if he becomes president, I think that Nigeria have won a lottery, because this guy, it's unheard of in Nigerian history, in the history of Nigerian politics, that a politician reacts immediately to public outcry. What the Nigerian politician normally does is to double down on the error that the public have been criticizing and stand on it as if to say that his whole life depends on it. One of the major flaws of the Nigerian politician is the inability to own up to a mistake. Look at the president today. Till today, he has not even addressed the nation on oil theft. Can you imagine that? In spite of the media outcry, in spite of the huge publications everywhere, the president is yet to address his people. But Peter Obi, people cried, Njenje should not be in the list of the campaign council. This was a guy that made easy of our pain. This was a guy that was justifying people being killed at Lekki Bridge. He should not be there. The people screamed and cried. And it didn't even take up to 24 hours for this guy to react. And I am saying, Nigeria, where have we been hiding this guy all this while? Where have we hidden people like this man all this while that listens to public outcry and implements a solution immediately? But why would that surprise me? Has that not been his antecedent in Anambra State? This was a guy, as a governor of Anambra State, that gave the head boy or head girl of every high school in his state his direct telephone number to call him once anything doesn't go right in their schools. And it's on record that these people made use of that, and he was always there within 24 hours to listen. And so it's not something that he's not doing it for political effect. This has been his way in his approach to public duties. I think that this guy is he will be a great win for Nigeria if he maintains these principles that has brought him thus far. I think that Nigeria, it will be a win-win for all of us.
Okay, before we round up on this particular topic, what are the two key things you may wish to see him do moving forward? Maybe the issues that you may wish to see him speak to, and what are the key things when he wins you may wish to see him do at least within the first 6 months in office?
Well, to be honest with you, so far, every issue he has spoken to, especially on the issue of security, that was the basic. If within 60 days of being sworn in, if he can arrest the downward slide of our security situation in Nigeria, he will have done a lot. And then the second issue is power generation. Listen, Nnamdi Azikiwe had the motto of his newspaper then in the 1920s was show the light and the people will find their way. Nigerians will always find their way if you show them the light. Stamp down on insecurity just massively, because without that nothing else functions, and then with that every other thing could be made to work. And then power generation. With power, Nigeria will be on the way to moving out of consumption to production, because we have well-talented young people. See what young Nigerians are doing with the internet. I used to say, there was a time I wrote an article about the EFCC harassing young boys that they said were involved in scam. That was around 2011. And I said, if I was the EFCC chairman, if I was Nigerian's president, I will group these guys together and create Silicon Valley out of Lagos or anywhere in Nigeria. These guys are damn smart. There's the way this, and even you could see storytellers in those guys. You could get multitude of talents among these guys. The way they spin their stories to make people part with their money. These guys are excellent marketers. The way they market their scams and people fall into them. These are resources to be used. These are resources you can tap to and then redirect them into a positive direction. And Nigeria will be, look at India has succeeded in being the call center of the world. And from there, they took off their internet revolution. If you make a call in Britain today or to your telephone service provider, the person that will be answering to you may be sitting in a cafe in Bombay. Okay, why couldn't we do that in Nigeria? Okay, the world is shifting. Capital that crosses borders. So people would come to us if we direct these people and give them vocational training. So we don't want, instead of committing scams and crimes, they will be rechanneled into providing service. Some of them could be great novelists tomorrow. We have missed a lot of Chinua Achebes to the fact that EFCC keeps on terrorizing these guys without any clear policy on what to do with our young people. Nigeria doesn't have any policy for its young people, as far as I can see. And if any new government that is coming to power, if you don't address that, 70% of your population are young people. This is an explosive demographics. You either give them something to do, since an idle mind is a devil's workshop, or you will harvest.
Or they give you something to do.
Yeah, or they'll give you something to do. Obasanjo said it, or even Peter Obi. Those guys that we never trained yesterday are the ones kidnapping us today. If we don't train our young people today, the Nigeria of tomorrow will be a very fearful place. That's just what it is.
Okay, before we round up, obviously, I know you've done a lot of intervention in the next line of question that I will throw up to you. Yesterday, there was this news that said that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has been, the court has asked for him to be released. Now, later in the day, the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, came out to say that no, he has not been acquitted. Now, for so many lay people, I can read where people are saying, oh, why are they doing that? He should be on his way home now. So I believe some people are confused. Are you able to put right, in between the argument of his lawyers, that is Ejiofor and Zokome, SAN, and that of Malami, SAN? Are you able to put it right so that the viewers would understand where this case stands as it is today?
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's a very welcome development that the Nigerian judiciary was able to look at the executive in the face and tell them to take a hike to hell. But the point is, at this time, I have not had the opportunity of reading the judgment of the Honorable Court of Appeal in Abuja. But I was made to understand from what I read in the media, the court discharged throughout the case before it. But the court didn't go far enough to say that he has been acquitted. And so if the government decides to rearrest him tomorrow, I don't think that the principle of double jeopardy would kick in. But that being said, I think that
What's the difference between discharged and acquitted?
discharge and acquitted means that you have no case to answer on this set of facts anymore.
Okay.
And then if you cannot
and
be
that
tried,
has not happened.
That has not happened, and you cannot be tried anywhere on the same facts of this same case anywhere, or else the principle of double jeopardy will kick in, and then the law prohibits that. So that's where the Nigerian government will see an opening. But after all said and done, it's an issue of justice. The justifiable thing is either the court has said, this case you brought before me, I am throwing it out. You guys let this guy go. So the government should release him, and then to his family and friends, and then we'll take it from there. We'll see how things unfold in the coming days. So the government should not be seen as opposing. We know this government for being very, very reckless with court judgments. When the court decides, the government doubles down. So they should obey the court judgment, because that's what a democracy is all about.
So, but if from your view, when we talk about this court judgment, that is an appeal.
Yeah, that was an appeal.
Yes. What if, I think what Malami was alluding to yesterday was that he is going to go over to the Supreme Court to appeal, to appeal that decision.
He can do that. The law gives him look at it. The law in its majesty foresaw all this. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court is the final arbiter. If you come to the Supreme Court, then once the Supreme Court decides, is like Roma locuta causa finita est. It is finished. So the case could still run to the Supreme Court. If the government feels that they are not comfortable with the judgment, they could then appeal to the Supreme Court. We'll wait to see how that plays out.
But should the government be holding him while that appeal is being made?
Okay, governments. The government could always invent a reason to still keep him in custody. We know that. We know the Nigerian government is notorious for that. But on this case, that was sent to the appeal court for determination, the case that was before the appeal court said, on this case, Nnamdi Kanu has no case to answer. He should be allowed to go. So if there are other cases, the substantive case that was preferred against him, I don't know whether that was what the Supreme Court, what the Court of Appeal treated and then reached its judgment. So I am yet to read that judgment.
I think part of what Appeal Court did was to nullify what they call the illegal rendition.
The issue of jurisdiction. Yeah,
exactly.
That's what
so
I said.
So if the issue of jurisdiction is nullified, on what basis would that case then go on?
Well, the Nigerian government preferred cases. The Nigerian government is a silly prosecutor anyway. If the people that did that, I will fire them in a second. I'm sorry. It's a very silly. You kept amending cases all this while, up to 15 times. So, which is to say, you don't have any case against this guy. So, but like the lower court, I was made to understand, decided on the issue of jurisdiction. Does the government have the right to try somebody that they illegally kidnapped, extraordinary rendition brought into the country? And the appeal court said yesterday, no. Capital no. Government, sorry, you don't have a right to trial this guy on that you brought in. You cannot profit from your crime. The law prohibits that. So that's what I understand was the issue before the appeal court. But if they are arresting him on fresh charges, who will know that? But on this case, the appeal court has thrown the case out. The government either goes on appeal or lets him go. So these are the two options. Other options I will understand clearer when I have been able to read the judgment. I have not been able to lay my hands on that at this moment. So I cannot speak to the facts of the issue.
Okay. Now, before I let you go, still on 2023 elections, do you, in your considered opinion, think that Nigeria would have cause to worry if the Nigerian youth in any way, shape, or form does not have their way, do you think it might lead to people losing hope in the country of their birth and in their normal street parlance trying to jackpot? Or do you think they may, there might be any form of unrest? What's your
Either way,
prediction?
yeah, either way, there are going to be consequences. If this election is mismanaged and if the young people are frustrated again, there are going to be consequences anyways. We are harvesting the consequences of our neglect of our young people. Those who couldn't get out of their situation, those whose parents are too poor to finance studies abroad or whatever, who couldn't get scholarships, or those who couldn't run through Sahara Desert to escape the cauldron of insecurity and hopelessness that Nigeria has become, they stayed back. And many of them used to hire themselves out to these politicians as thugs, okay, to carry ballot boxes. But now they are realizing that once we are the ones doing these dirty jobs, that we can equally get something for ourselves. So if you frustrate them this time, the armed robberies, the kidnappings, and the violence we are seeing today will simply be a child's play in relation to what we are going to see going forward. Or there's another alternative. Or the Nigerian youth will simply go into themselves and destroy themselves by themselves. Frantz Fanon made a wonderful assertion. No, it was Jean-Paul Sartre in his preface to Frantz Fanon's book, The Wretched of the Earth. He wrote somewhere, if suppressed fury fails to find an outlet, it goes in and devastates the oppressed themselves. This is an alternative that I can equally foresee. So many young Nigerian people, Nigerian youth, especially in the northern part of the country, are drug addicts today. And we have seen so many Nigerian young people committing suicide because they don't see any hopes and perspectives anymore in the country. So this is the suppressed fury going in to destroy this oppressed demographic themselves. It's equally an alternative. But what I'm seeing, the majority of Nigerian young people, they are not ready to take our, excuse my English, shit anymore. They are ready to fight back for their rights. And we better not stand on their way because this guys, it will be a deluge. You see what happened to Noah, the Noachian deluge will be a child's play in comparison to the violence we are going to see if we frustrate these young people in any way, shape, or form. Because they are seeing their contemporaries in other parts of the world becoming millionaires at 28, conquering the world at a very young age. And they are being hamstringed by their politics, by their leadership, by their country. The Nigerian young people don't ask much of us. They are asking us, give us a place to stand and let us shake this universe. But we are not giving them that place. Unfortunately, our leadership has failed them squarely on all levels. Look at ASU. The universities have been on strike for 8 months. You waste 8 months of their young lives. You know, one of the interesting things I noticed. I was among the oldest people at 25 in my doctoral class when I came to Frankfurt. I was doing my doctorate with 16-year-olds. Can you imagine that? So, because these university systems abroad, they don't experience the kind of strikes or breaks in education that we have. You end up graduating. Do you know how many strikes I experienced as a young law student at the University of Nigeria in Uwe campus? You know, and now you waste 8 months of the life of a young person. You know, and we don't see it as anything. If you waste my time, you have wasted my life, because life is a sequence of seconds and minutes and hours. But we waste them with reckless abandon in Nigeria, and nobody takes responsibility for it. So if we stop these young people, if we stand on their way, the kidnappings we are seeing today, we will just get our loins, because it's going to get worse.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's a very fine place to anchor this evening conversation. It has been my pleasure to have you, Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh, a senior research fellow and director for genocide prevention in Africa at the Christian Solidarity International, CSI, Zürich, Switzerland. I say to you, thank you very much for being my guest. It's a pleasure having you, and we have had wonderful conversation. I hope you would oblige me any other time that I do have the need to call upon you.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you very much. And to our viewers at home, it has been my pleasure to have a doctor here. We've we touched on several issues. We started with genocide. We looked into the definition of genocide and where it may be occurring in Nigeria in relationship to the job he does. He also gave us insight in the predictive analysis that they've done and also thinking what is happening in the Middle Belt. We also looked at Boko Haram and the inability of the government vis-a-vis the president in handling some of these security challenges. Also looked at the oil sector, the obedient movement, and we ended up with the likely outcome of 2023 with the youths. There is so much to be said about the nation called Nigeria. There is so much that is happening in Nigeria of today. But there is one thing that we must not stop doing is conversation. When people say that you need actions, I dare remind us that conversation on its own is also action. That in conversing and really having deep rooted conversation with one another is better to Jojo, as many will say, than to war. If you are still watching on this platform and you haven't subscribed to this platform, I beseech and beg you to please click the like button, share, and subscribe. In Njenje Media TV, we endeavor to bring to you quality content because on this platform, we believe in exploring the truth that is behind in every headline you read every single day. I am Ogbunwezeh Ezoke. I say thank you very much for joining me on my Friday Hangout, and I hope to see you next week if the Lord tallies. Once more, please subscribe, and I say to you, good night, and may God bless us all.
Star Hot Promotions and Nolly Peak Entertainment presents Chief Imo in London, featuring Chief Imo himself, Uche Odopota, MC-A1, MC BZB, Sister Maggie, MC OJB, MC Splendor, MC CEO, MC Triple U, Don Nice, Emeka Smith, and Appos. DJ Osajat and DJ T God will be there live. Dancers, Dazzlers, 21st October 2022, 5 p.m. Venue, Asian Community Center, White Hart Road, Thamesmead, London. Postcode SE18 1DG. Ticket standard £35, VIP £700. To get your ticket online, visit www.eventbrite.co.uk or www.cocobar.com. Ticket outlet: Alpha Lounge Lewisham, Enish Old Kent Road, Wazobia Old Kent Road, Empire Lounge Old Kent Road, Okuroha Store Woolwich, Lewisham High Street and Eventbrite. For more info, call the numbers on your screen. This is going to be great. Don't miss out.